Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We welcome you, whatever time and wherever in the world you are listening. We are pleased you have found us. You are now listening to Inside the Bunghole, a podcast taking you on a journey through wine. Together, we will learn more about this wonderful elixir of life. So raise your glass to welcome your hosts and partners in wine, Pam and James. You are now inside the bunghole.
Welcome to a very echoey edition of Inside the Bunghole. I'm Pam.
James.
And we are sitting here in the beautiful echoey wine cave of Bella Grace with Jess Havill. Welcome to Inside the Bunghole, inside a cave.
Thank you both for coming here.
Yes.
And it's going to be very fun to do the discussion from inside of our women cave.
Yes. Tell me about the cave. How did this come about?
Yeah, so when my parents started the vineyard in 2006, they kind of started it as they were going to be gentlemen or gentle lady farmers. And we had extra fruit in 2006, and so they thought, well, why don't we make wine? That'll be fun. And over the course of 2006 to 2011, they went from making a few hundred cases to about 1,100 cases. And my dad was previous life an engineer, and he always thought it'd be really cool to have a wine cave. Pun intended, cool. And when you looked at the property, as you come up, you'll see it's on a hill. And so what they did is they carved out the front of the hill and made a flat wall face. And they started drilling in with a diamond tip drill. And they got 10 meters in and hit solid granite going up the hill at an angle.
Wow.
And we ended up having to dynamite blast the rest of the rock out of one.
Wow.
So
That was probably an unforeseen expense.
so luckily we paid by contract, but yeah, it was an unforeseen expense, but also incredibly fun. So,
But literally
yes.
blown up.
So they would drill in, and I'll show you later. The fountain is actually drilling holes. So Blast kept drilling holes. They drill in about 10, 15 meters. They push the dynamite in there and exploded piece by piece by piece. And so we ended up with over 650 tons of rock out of here.
Oh my God.
And when you look at the wine cave, when you walk out front and you see it's lined kind of on the left and right, it's lined by rocks that were inside of here. So we have some really big rocks. We have some small rocks. We've used quite a few tons of it, but we have a rock graveyard up the hill that's still got over 350 tons of rock in there.
Well, it's another thing about when you look out of the cave, you go out of the cave, and the view is absolutely stunning. Stunning. Just looking over the vineyards, it's crazy.
It is one of the prettiest views that you can find, especially in Amador County. As I was saying to you before we started, there's kind of more scenic outlooks, but what's very unique about our view is that you get a view of one of the oldest kind of valleys in Amador County. And so not too far away, we have the Grand Pere Vineyards, which is the oldest certified Zinfandel at 1869. Wow. You could walk there. You could throw a couple Nerf footballs there. Wow. If you're good at it. And so you get some unique history just in our valley. And I'm a skier, so Kirkwood's not far, grew up in Colorado. It's kind of this interesting bowl effect where we're on one side and you look over and you'll see Shenandoah and Iron Hub and our closest neighbor is Romauer. But you look over there, those wineries actually look like they're higher in elevation than we are. But when you go over there, we look like we're in higher elevation than they are. So it's kind of got this unique effect to it. But it is incredibly beautiful. It's kind of the rolling hills. It reminds me a little bit of Tuscany.
Wow.
And you said 16, the oldest one out here is
1869.
1869. They were growing grapes.
Yes, the Grand Pere Vineyards. And there's a few wineries in our valley that actually are making grapes with the Grand Pere Vineyards, and those are fun to go and try and find. So I would encourage anyone who's up here looking to find some of those wines. You actually can find them from some of the wineries.
And should we, do you want to try one as we're talking?
Yeah, and as we're talking, you could tell me the wine you're pouring. Tell me about Bella Grace, the name.
That's perfect for this wine. So the wine we're going to start with is the Bella Rosé. So this is 60% Grenache, 40% Mourvedre. The Bella Rosé is named after my great-grandmother, Bella. And both of those fruits are actually from our estate vineyards.
It's amazing.
Great acidity. And the nice part about that, since we're going to be talking for a while, that acidity on all the whites will try. Kind of keeps your mouth salivating. So Bella is my great-grandmother from my mom's side, Michael, and Charlie's grandmother was Grace. So it's my two great-grandmothers, Bella and Grace. And a lot of people are like, oh, is it beautiful Grace? Or how does the translation go? Bella married a gentleman and they had 12 children. And 48 grandchildren. Oh. And now, after all the marriages and divorces of Michael, my mom's uncles, there's over 60 grandchildren. And so Michael is one of the grandchildren. And when we were looking at naming a lot of the wines, we do name them after Bella or Grace, the winery being named after both of them. We have the Bella Rosé that is named after Bella, beautiful wine. And then we did a screen printing thing on here. So this rose actually grows outside my parents' house up the hill. Okay. And the designer kind of deconstructed it so it would take advantage of the screen printing that we do on this package. So it's really quite fun to be the whole time.
It is wonderful wine. Wonderful wine.
And what, I'm sorry again, the grapes that you grow?
60% Grenache, 40% Mourvedre on this particular rosé.
And you grow those right here on property?
We do. So you were looking out over them. The interesting thing about this particular wine is that when we used to make it, we had a basket press, which is kind of an open press that presses down. Mm-hmm. And we were getting this wine that was delicious, but it was kind of turning this orange color and it wouldn't last as long. And so me and my mom, Michael, spent a lot of time drinking French Provence wines because we figured if we're going to use French Rhone wines like Grenache Mourvedre, why not go out and try and see what people are doing to make them best? So we ended up using a closed press. That's my dog, Jack. He's there. Sorry. Yeah. Is that okay? Yeah, he's going to be fine. Those will be, it's like not only echoey, but now we got dog echoing. But we whole cluster press our Grenache. And so when we whole cluster press our Grenache, we're getting the juice right off the skins as quickly as possible. And you end up with like a light white to pink orange. And then the Mourvedre we actually take out 3 weeks later. And we spun it in our closed bladder press for about 30 minutes to get a little bit of skin contact. So we ferment those two varietals separate, and then we blend them together.
Interesting. Who in the family started with the wine skills? With the wine?
I think it started with wine passion by my mom, Michael, and she was one of the first female managing partners of New York Life office, so she ran the East Bay office. And she used to take all of her sales staff and friends and families up to Sonoma, Napa to try wines and have fun experiences, team building experiences up there. So she always had a passion for wine, and she's an incredible cook, like one of those classics where you're like, what are we having for dinner? And then she kind of whips it up, and 5 courses later, you're stuffed and happy and full of wine.
What time is dinner?
Yeah, I know, right? So it was their passion to start the vineyard, and then throughout the time from 2006 to now, Michael has been our winemaker. She's fully retired now.
So she's the, wow, she was the, wow.
So she's the winemaker through basically the 21, 22 vintage, and then she fully retired, and now our winemaker is Moises Avasado, and our longtime consulting winemaker, his name is Joe Havill. And Joe Havill's own wines are Fiddletown, which you'll see Fiddletown throughout California, and his kind of higher-end wine is Jockey Club. She did a couple classes at UC Davis in Sonoma on blending and kind of how to taste wines and some of the science behind it, but Joe Havill's been kind of a godsend in terms of helping us with the actual recipes. But she has such a wonderful palate that the ability to figure out how to adapt to what we're doing, how we're changing around the methods that we're doing in the vineyard, how we're changing around how we're aging it in the wine cave. She was very incredible in terms of going, well, let's adjust it this way to get to a very friendly palate.
That is a sniffle, this, by the way.
Now, also for the wine cave, it's significantly cooler in here. Is that natural? This is
all natural. So we are right where we're sitting. We're about 90 feet deep into the wine cave. We had to do a horseshoe because we needed 2 entrances and exits. But the reason to build the wine cave was because it was the perfect aging environment for wine. But it's 57, 58 degrees every day of the year.
So you dig a hole, it's cooler.
Yeah. So we are from here to the topsoil, 34 feet below the topsoil. We're sitting on 6 inches of concrete and then 6 inches of sprayed gunite. And so when they dynamite blast, they're dynamite blasting out of really hard granite, and granite's kind of very famous in the wine world because it gets crushed into sand and is perfect for vine stage. And it was structurally sound, so we didn't necessarily have to put the gun out of it, but the county wanted to make sure it was even more structurally sound than the engineers considered structurally sound.
Well, that's good.
Hopefully they aren't listening, but the county's kind of always a tough thing.
The red tape.
So we have the doors, as you probably notice, are pretty heavy. They're 4 or 5 inches thick, so we keep it very nice and cool in here.
Good.
Now, speaking of the climate, and other places in here, what makes this climate crazy? Because I know they grow a lot of Zen out here, and they grow, what other grapes grow well in wine?
So we do an event every year as the Amador Vineyards Association called the Four Fires, and the idea is to promote the 4 different regions. So we have California Heritage, would be Sauvignon Blanc, Zinfandel kind of falls into that, Cabernet Sauvignon falls into that. Then we have Iberian, so you have the Albarino, some of those port styles, so you're talking Spanish and Portugal. And then we have the French and the Italian region. And what we had in Amador is people coming to look for gold in the 1850s, 1860s, and they would bring their clippings. And so we have Eastern Europeans, Italians, all these French, all these Europeans. We even have Spanish monks coming, and they would bring their clippings with them and plant them. And so over time in California, that started here where Amador is the oldest, most historic wine region in California. And it gets lost in the sauce because there's more famous regions now. But you have kind of the original wine region here and then growing out of there where people move to.
So this region was the oldest.
Yeah, in terms of plantings, you have people coming to look for gold and then bringing their clippings. And so some of the oldest vines are here. We have, Soban down the street, the oldest certified winery in California, Grand Pere, the oldest certified Zinfandel in California.
Here are your other places, though. We're in the first winery, but...
Well, I tend to, you hear that
clippings. You're saying they brought
them during the gold rush days.
Do you have old clippings?
I don't usually.
Right.
Well, we luckily get to travel with the finished product.
Yeah.
But if you're coming from northern Italy, you got to bring your clippings with you.
I bring your clippings.
But then you have like this, I think, misconception where you might have a winery that was the first major winery in Napa, but it's 1940s. And so then you look at the dichotomy and the difference between what is now famous Napa and Sonoma to were there wineries and vineyards planted before. I don't know if it's that big of a competition in terms of who was the oldest, but from the heritage of Amador, it's very important. And so we have Italian and Rhone varietals that grow really well here. So when you go outside the wine cave and you look to the left, you will see the Sierra Nevadas. You'll see the snow caps. Luckily, we have a lot of snow this year.
Yeah.
And as those mountains went up, we had the glaciers carve out the valleys. So we have this granitic rock, same rock that we pulled out of the wine cave, crushed by those glaciers. And so our tome, THOM, the kind of terroir, the soil of Amador, is granitic sand with a little bit of clay. And so when you have vines planted there, it's really easy for them to go through each layer to find their nutrients. And you'll have different versions of that in different areas of Amador, but you also have a little different terroir or temperature, peaks and valleys than you do when we're closer to the coast. And so you have varieties that go really well on the coast. You go into like Santa Barbara Paso, you have Pinots and Rhones. You go Sonoma, you have Chauds and Pinots, a little bit of Cab. You go into Napa, you have Cab, and then you're kind of going north of there where you get more Pinots. And then you have out here, the history of Zinfandel. So the oldest Zinfandel here in California. We have some of the Italian varietals. We do Zinfandel, we do Primitivo, but in our vineyard we have Grenache, Syrah, Petite Syrah, Mourvedre. So we do GSM blends out of those. Our main focus is Italian and French wines because we believe that they drink really well, they show really well for our temperate.
Right.
And when you think about the coast of Italy or southern France or Napa and Sonoma and Paso, you have that cooler ocean breeze, and then we have the entire opposite. So it's 110, 115 degrees in July as we're ripening. So we end up with warmer climate that brings a really nice ripening over a few weeks. But man, is it hot.
Yeah, I could see you guys doing like a super Tuscan or something.
I know, that'd be super fun.
That would be super fun. We should probably do a super break.
We'll do a super break and we'll find out more about Big Bertha behind us.
Later we will.
We'll be back in just a flash.
Perfect.
If you want to know more about Inside the Bunghole, join us on all our social media platforms. You can get a revisit and view all the latest posts, giveaways, and information on this podcast. Simply search Inside the Bunghole on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. Or you can email us at insidethebunghole@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, and visit our website at insidethebunghole.buzzsprout.com, where you can always find our latest podcast and past episodes. Cheers!
Okay, we're back in the cave with Jess drinking some amazing wines from Bella Grace.
Sample.
Really, really good wines.
Speaking of wine.
Oh, yeah. So we do, as we were talking about the different varietals that we do, we actually source about 30% of our production from different vineyards. This Viognier is sourced from a vineyard down the street from us, and we bring it in, we whole cluster press this. What's unique about this is that we whole cluster press this and then press it into a concrete egg. And so the concrete egg is 420 gallons, easy to remember if you know who I am. And the reason we're using the concrete egg is because we used to make a Viognier, and I needed to make another one for production. I needed to sell something that's not Sauvignon Blanc and not Chardonnay out in the wholesale market. And you can find Viognier in Amador County pretty nicely. And so we were looking at it, I go, I don't want something that chews like potpourri. And so we're trying to find different ways to do that. And so we're taking a really old school winemaking concept of putting it in a concrete stone vessel and then using modern winemaking techniques. And so we have a 420 gallon egg, but we call this cracked egg Viognier because when it got delivered, it's over 6,500 pounds. My goodness, 3.25 tons. And when it was getting delivered, my dad dropped it off the forklift.
The egg?
The egg, yes. So it lands on its side on the back of the flatbed truck. We have to go in with 2 forklifts to lift it up. Truck drives away. We're cranking it to get it back upright. We finally get it set in place. Luckily for us, it was all superficial scrapes and cracks all over the egg. It's beautiful presentation egg. And we had a different label, and I started kind of making fun of my dad, calling it cracked egg Viognier. And over time, I reached out to the designer and said, hey, let's take this story and put it to the label. It's too fun.
Yeah.
So you're taking a concept of an egg that's been dropped by my dad, his name's Charlie, and kind of making fun of it a little bit, but taking full ownership of that mistake. And we do that a lot as a family winery. And so we have... My dad is the rooster to stick with the egg thing over the forklift with the crack on the side. And we do a little QR code on the back that's shaped like an egg so you learn everything about it.
What great story.
Super fun. Yeah.
He must have felt
Humpty Dumpty.
awful. He dropped it, but it lends itself to a unique story.
I actually, the more wines that we taste that are done in the ceramic egg or in the ceramic egg, concrete egg, you get a little bit of minerality. You get a little bit different out of it.
This has some fruit on the front. It has the minerality. It has that lime. It's very like almost key lime.
Yeah.
And that's kind of makes you, when you're thinking about some minerality, thinking about concrete, you're going to get some of that limestone coming through or that lime flavor.
Great story. God, bring it.
The reason we use an egg, the egg shape actually promotes movement during fermentation and aging. So we ferment in the egg and we age in the egg for about 3 months. And then our egg is unsealed. So you can have concrete that's sealed, so you can have just the vessel. But when you have it unsealed, we get a process called micro-oxygenation. So during fermentation, you're getting a little more oxygen on the wine than you will in a stainless steel tank, less than you will in a barrel if you're fermenting in the barrel. And then during the aging process, you get a little more oxygen. So when you think about proofing bread, we're talking a little bit of the scientific process there. Some breads you want to cover, some breads you want the oxygen to hit it. And then you'll have breads from different areas that have different kind of terroirs where they are. So the yeast interacting with the local oxygen through that tank is important for this process. And we wanted to, what we say, frame the fruit as it hangs on the vine. So Viognier is a very delicious grape, but a lot of times you end up with super potpourri or you end up with very Chardonnay style, that creamy marshmallow. So this is our presentation of the Viognier.
What's a good pairing with this? What would you have this with?
I think goat cheese salad with prosciutto and green apple is a wonderful pairing. I think you can get into some seafoods. I think when you get that lime, you kind of can go into, am I going to get into a spicy taco, or that lime's going to that lime and acid is going to cut through? That'd be a super fun.
Getting back to your mom, Michael, and that rosé, when she presses it, like, is it an hour, 2 hours, or is it just a day? And like, what is it?
So we whole cluster press all of our white wines, and the reason we're doing that is we want to really show off what the fruit tastes like. So as I was saying with the Viognier, so when you're doing a rosé, you are trying to get it off the skins because you don't want that color to be impacted. And so we actually have a 120-minute press, and we have a cycle, and in our bladder press, the technology's gotten really great for us from how each minute can go. And so the bladder press looks like a hot dog, not a hamburger, and it presses up against. We have a big compressor involved, so it presses up against the fruit. It'll go up to a certain PSI, and then it slowly goes back down. And so we're getting the juice out, and then you can determine how many times it's going to spin.
Can you see the color at this time too?
So as we put these in there, we use dry ice. And dry ice, as you remember from science class, when you let it hit air or water, it creates all this fog. That fog is a scientific process that's eating the oxygen. So we're using dry ice to keep things cold, but also to minimize the amount of oxygen that's hitting the fruit. And so we can actually see the color as it hits the pan, and then we pump it from the pan into the tank that we're putting it into. And so with our rosé specifically, we are looking for color throughout the process. So the first color and the first amount of juice is going to be kind of free-run juice, just so you imagine grapes kind of getting thrown together, going to smash a little bit, get juice out. And then you have the first time the press starts hitting it. So what's that color look like? And then you have, once you get up to 1.4, 1.6, 2 bars. So a bar's so 2 bar, you're at 2,000 pounds of pressure. And so we never really on the rosés get up that high.
It's great.
We'll cut it or...
It is a beautiful color.
Great color.
And I have seen a lot of different rosés have that orangey tint, and this one's just beautiful.
My mom wanted Hello Kitty pink, she said. She wanted like that fun, it makes you think that you want to drink it.
Yes.
And it looks like that. So it's very important to us, kind of that process. And so because our Grenache comes out of that little, as I was saying, little coppery orange, we wanted some of the color to be from the Mourvedre.
Well, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and go to the reds and find out more.
Perfect.
Okay.
If you want to know more about Inside the Bunghole, join us on all our social media platforms. You can get a revisit and view all the latest posts, giveaways, and information on this podcast. Simply search Inside the Bunghole on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. Or you can email us at insidethebunghole@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, and visit our website at insidethebunghole.buzzsprout.com, where you can always find our latest podcast and past episodes. Cheers!
Okay, welcome back, everybody. And we are still, obviously, in a cave. And talking to Jess at Bella Grace.
So what is this we're having here?
So this is our 2020 Amador Barbera.
So
I'm going to pour a little more of that. That's delicious. So
Smell is wow.
Smells good, feels good, tastes good, I say, on our Barbera. In 2013, our 2009 Barbera, or I could have the dates wrong. It's hard to remember at this point. Won Best of California at the State Fair. Our Grenache Blanc at the time won Best of California at the State Fair. And that kind of landed us on the people have to go and see us now map. And ever since then, we've sourced from more Barbera vineyards. And we now, in the 2020 vintage, source from 5 different vineyards. And they're all within about 7 miles of here. So when we're sourcing from those vineyards, we're picking each of them separate. We're aging them in different barrel lots, and then we're blending together. And so we kind of get to make 5, 6 different Barberas. And then at the final stage, you're going, okay, how do these balance each other? And we have a vineyard that's got a little more natural acidity to it. And so what's great about that is you can use that in the blend without actually having to add any acid artificially. So you're able to balance these different flavors and these different unique characteristics from each vineyard to bring this together. So the 2020 vintage is 22% new French oak for 22 and a half months. We have Barbera here, which I'm going to pour into your glass. This is straight from Big Bertha. So when we make our Barbera, we actually use standard barriques. So barrique is the 59-gallon barrel. And then we use the punch-in barrels with tonneaus. So those are 225 liters, 500 liters, and then Big Bertha is 30 hectoliters. The reason we use Big Bertha for aging our Barbera is because the larger the barrel, the less surface area contact there is on the wine. And so the larger the vessel, the less percentage of oak. What's unique about Big Bertha, it comes from the center of France. It is untoasted, and we can use it for quite a few different vintages. This is the 3rd vintage in, so we're drinking 22 Barbera. So we just put this in there 2-3 weeks ago.
And how many cases will Big Bertha produce?
3,944.
Cases.
No, that can be bottles.
Bottles, I bet. 3,000 bottles. Let's look it up.
No, I'll just tell you in a second.
Yeah, this is that. Thank you.
I think it's 3,944 bottles.
I think you're right. It's amazing. That's a lot of bottles.
Yeah, 332 cases.
332 cases.
So 3,993 bottles. Sorry.
332 lucky cases.
Kind of ahead of myself again.
Wow. Okay.
So,
and how long will Big Bertha last? Like, how many more times can you do this before you retire her?
I don't know the answer to that. And it's kind of the fun part of
That's a good one. That's fun. Has the learning process been fun or different bringing this here?
So the day this was brought here, I remember it because I was up at the winery running the press and the forklift all by myself, and everyone was down here because if you look at Big Bertha, it has the big barrel on top and then it's on the stand. And the whole barrel in the stand did not fit through the door. So they had to take the stand apart, then bring it in, and rebuild the stand and set it on. So it took quite a bit of labor that day. And I remember specifically, so I was like, I need help. I'm up here by myself. Right. But everyone knows down here building Big Bertha. So
that's a big bunghole.
It's a very big bunghole. Yeah. So
Can you fit your head in the bunghole? I don't know if you've tried. I mean, I would have to try.
You might go with the bunghole, do a show in it. You know what I mean?
But we could actually do a show inside the bunghole.
Like put padding in there, like padding.
a side hop to
Yeah.
Well, so the larger the barrel, the larger the bunghole. This bunghole is very big, and we actually have to, on the standard barriques and the puncheons, we can put in a rubber bung with flaps so it can burp. And if you'll see on Big Bertha, it actually has this big plastic burper because it needs that much space because of the amount of gases can. So it's a very big bung in the big bung of Big Bertha.
It's a mighty bung.
Try to say that.
Mighty bung.
Yes.
Well, we're going to wrap here.
Give me the website real quick again.
BellaGraceVineyards.com.
BellaGraceVineyards.com.
Vineyards with an S. Yeah.
Very good.
God, and on that note, it's a Bella.
Yeah, it's a Bella.
Bella,
It's a Bella.
and Grace.
And Grace. And thank you.
Thank you so much for a great interview. And lots of good stories.
Great stories, and like
And
you guys are
better,
smart. The
almost
labels,
better wine.
the labels tell us. I dig it. I dig it. This has been a wonderful interview.
I appreciate you coming all the way here. It's a long ways from Palm Springs, and you're going to have a nice rest of your trip. I would encourage all your listeners to come check us out.
Yes.
There are 55 wineries in Amador. You're going to have an experience and adventure at each one. So we really encourage you to come to a different area in the foothills. So if you like to do outdoors, if you like good food, if you like good wine, like good olive oil, then Amador's where to be.
Yeah,
I
Amador.
appreciate both of you for coming and doing the interview.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for turning us on to this AVA. Is it its own AVA or is it part?
It is, I guess technically speaking, the smallest AVA here in Shenandoah Valley, California. But Amador Vendors Association, so AmadorVendors.com. You'll find us, startonsteiner.com, so the 9 wineries here. We work with the collective in Sutter Creek, so we have a tasting room in Sutter Creek. Wine on Main there, there's 7-8 wineries there. We're always working with the other wineries. We want as many people to come and see Amador as possible.
And visit.
I agree, because our drive here, we thought
amazing.
it was going to be just you, but it's like, look at that place and that place and that. So you do.
Or if you can drive through a couple of really
You can
cool
keep
towns.
yourself busy here doing wine tasting. So definitely worth the trip.
Yes.
Anyone that sees or hears this, worth the trip. So.
Well, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
All right.
Okay, we'll talk soon at the next episode of Inside the Bunghole.
Yeah. Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay.
Get it, people.
Orange good.
If you want to know more about Inside the Bunghole, join us on all our social media platforms. You can get a revisit and view all the latest posts, giveaways, and information on this podcast. Simply search Inside the Bunghole on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. Or you can email us at insidethebunghole@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, and visit our website at insidethebunghole.buzzsprout.com, where you can always find our latest podcast and past episodes. Cheers!